Welcome to This Got Me Thinking, where clarity comes from conversations and the connections that spark from them. I am your host, Chris LaFay, and today I had the pleasure of chatting with Alex Folks. Alex is someone who has repeatedly stepped into situations that he wasn't, on paper, ready for. He bought a restaurant with no money, launched a business without perfect systems, and was starting to pitch ideas before they were even barely fully formed in his mind. And instead of failing spectacularly, he learned something far more valuable, is that confidence does not come from certainty, it comes from movement. And this conversation is about imperfect starts, earned credibility, and why most people don't fail because they're wrong. They fail simply because they just never began. I'll let Alex tell a story. What did you do in terms of like mentorship and advising before you were in Vistage?
I had a couple business coaches, some that were good, some that were not. Had relationships. I always loved to coach. So I always looked for those opportunities where somebody would come to me and ask a question and could develop sort of a mentor relationship. So I started doing it a lot. Reading books. I was never good at school. That founder ADHD, undiagnosed, but, later sort of realized that that's why I struggled in school. But what I could always do really well is when I'm really interested in something, I get hyper focused and hyper disciplined on it. And so I just started reading, and I just started reading books and listening to podcasts. And when I would gravitate towards somebody or some message, I would sometimes just go back and listen to it 10 times because, I realize it's not the sort of width, it's how narrow you can get within certain subjects and really retain it. And, at first I started trying to just read as many books as possible because that was an ego play. I wanted to prove to myself that I can read books because I never could before. That's bullshit, right? You don't retain most of it. And then I realized okay, let's find a smaller amount of things, people, podcasts, whatever, and let's just go deeper into those. And so that plus kind of Vistage is great because one, it's just you get experiences that you could not get anywhere else besides those sort of other groups. There's, YPO and things like that. But it forces your hand, and they have great speakers, like really, really high quality people who come in, and, you basically get a TEDx, or a TED talk almost every month from it. So you learn a lot that way, but then you just start processing other people's issues. And so I've been doing this for 3 years. And if you bring an issue to me, I'm just going to start going down the list and processing through it because I've done it so dang much at this point that now I don't even realize it's a skill, but I'll start doing it in other aspects. And people look at me and they're just like, wow, he's really good at this. Well, I wasn't for a while. And then you do it more. And you learn, and the confidence comes from seeing other people learn that thing too. Again, in this scenario, who are farther ahead. So I know if people who are farther ahead of me still struggle and have to learn the same thing, it's all achievable, right? Almost everything is a skill. So
How long did it take you to learn to be kind of an open book with folks? Was Vistage really that lever, that light switch that kind of went on and off, or was that a part of your personality for a long time before that?
So it wasn't always a part of my personality. I remember early on. So my first business, I bought a restaurant when I started the process at 29. I'm 41 now. And I think I bought it, I got 30. And it was scary, it was a big deal. I bought it, it was $600,000. It was a lot of money for me at the time. And I remember when I first started and owned it, I hoarded everything. And even actually because I was a manager at the restaurant before, I was the general manager, and I hoarded all knowledge because I thought that made me irreplaceable. And it did to a certain extent. But it's not good for training. It's not good for my bandwidth. It's not good for the overall growth of me and the organization. And so I kept that mentality when I became a business owner, and I still hoarded until I don't know what the point was. I think there was a point where I read something or somebody said something, or maybe it was over the course of a time, but I started to realize that when you share knowledge, one, it doesn't make you less valuable, it makes you more valuable. Two, you start training people, and they help you run your business in that scenario. And that's a whole lot better for you. And I really liked it. So somewhat early on in my business ownership, I made the flip to share everything and not be scared of that. And so I still will sometimes have that thing in my head that says, gatekeep this one, it's good. But I overcome it and I share it. And I've literally never had anything bad happen. Like people, the thing you have to understand is people mostly, I don't think lazy is the right word, but they will not take action on the thing. There is a small percentage of people that will actually take action, but a whole lot of people will get inspired by things, right? And so if you share those lessons, you will create better people. If they're good lessons, you will create better workers. I've never had anybody, I don't think, go, that's fantastic, let me go compete with you, right? And even if they did, it's like, great, do your own thing. Like I stopped being scared of competition a long time ago. There was a point when I used to be where I was terrified of it, of other restaurants coming in, of other businesses that I had to compete with. And then I realized, like, when a really good restaurant group came into my town with the same concept as mine, I was fucking terrified. And then when they finally opened their doors, we were fine. And so at that point I was like, okay, like if they come in and like don't eat my lunch, then like who am I scared of? There's nobody, And so I realized, like, just focus on yourself and you'll be fine.
Why did you buy the restaurant? Was it a decision made out of comfort because you've been working there for a while and it was comfortable for you to basically just stay and try this thing out? Or was it baked in a lot of logic and studying and structure? And the reason for my question is I know that this is like the first thing that you did. So I'm curious, kind of in hindsight, kind of how, like, which of those two paths do you feel like it was more on?
I would actually say neither.
Oh, interesting.
So for one, I hadn't been there a long time. I'd been there maybe a year and a half when the owner first pitched that he was looking to sell. When I was the restaurant manager at the place that I ended up buying, and that was my first restaurant management position. I'd always wanted to be a restaurant manager, but I hadn't gotten the opportunity until that restaurant. I had always been like other sort of, assistant managers or like a banquet manager or a catering manager. And I was like, I want to run the whole thing. And so that was my first opportunity. And when I first took over as a manager, I had imposter syndrome then. And I was just an employee. And I was like, I don't actually know how to do this. Like, I didn't know POS systems. Like, I didn't know this stuff, but I was hired because I was confident. I was always pretty good at like interviewing, and for whatever reason he gave me the job, and I just put my head down and I just worked my ass off because I was like, I cannot show authority over these people, I just have to like be the teammate. That ended up working well, and a year and a half in, he floated the idea, the owner, of like selling to me, to the operations manager and the head chef. The operations manager said, I don't have any money, I can't buy it. I was like, I don't have any money, but maybe I can buy it. And then the head chef said the same thing. He was like, well, I don't have any money, but like, maybe I can buy it. So and the business was good. I had been running it. I saw the potential. It was busy. It was a good location. I knew the numbers. We had run everything. So my thought process on that was, oh shit, well, here's an opportunity. I didn't expect it, but let's see where we can take it. And, I think it's a pretty good business. Very long story short, the owner did try to sort of take advantage of me as a young person, and he offered me a deal that was not good. Overall, good guy, but he tried to get the most out of it. I realized it at a point, and I dropped out. And we had like talked, we had negotiated. It was probably 6 months, And I said, nope, I'm done. This doesn't make sense. And his accountant tried to tell me it made sense. And I was like, it doesn't make sense. And so I said, I'm done. I'm going to find another job. And he ended up coming back like a month later and was like, hey, are you interested? And I said, yes, but I want all of it. Before, he had offered me only a percentage, like 10%, and that's what we were negotiating on. And then he wanted to take a salary. He had never taken a salary before. Anyways, that was the sort of bad deal. And, that's a very short, condensed version of it. But when he came back to me, now I had the leverage, because even though I probably couldn't have articulated it at the time, I knew I was in a different position. And so I could negotiate. And that's where I said 100% of it. And he said, okay, let's talk. And then I was like, oh shit, okay, now I got to like make this happen. And that was started the process. That was, you asked if it was comfortable. No, it was pretty much the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done, because one, I'd never done it before. And I was just like shooting way outside of my league, right? Like I was on the hotness scale, I was a 2, and the lady I was courting was a 10, 11 bombshell, right? Like I didn't know what I was doing. And so I started the process. I ended up getting one bank out of all of the banks I talked to say, yes, we'll lend to you. And then, but we need a pretty sizable down payment. It was like 240,000 or something. And I was like, well, shit, I don't have 240,000. And so I had to like knock on literally every door I could with like a business plan and an idea, and like ask for people to give me money, which is like, I don't know if you've ever done that, talking to the audience or whoever, is like, it is so uncomfortable to go, hey, can you give me your money? Like that is a hard thing to do. And I had to do it. And so that was one of the first in my life times where I knew I had to force myself out of my comfort zone and do something that I wasn't sure I could actually do, but I ended up doing. And that will always be with me. And that's a very powerful sort of moment in my life, because I did achieve something that I wasn't even sure I could do. And I think a lot of other people thought that I couldn't do. I had no history to say that I could do it. But I did. And then, you just need one opportunity in life. And that one opportunity just completely set me up.
So the moment that kind of culminated all of that hard work of like, door knocking and begging people for money, basically culminated in handing the bank a check. What through that I'm curious, how many months did you go door knocking? And what was the biggest takeaway that you took from that just brutal period of life?
I don't remember exactly how long the period was, but it was months and it was hard. But yeah, like you said, I eventually rounded up the money, and it was like almost on like the finish line where like I got one person to finally say like, yes, I'll give you the last amount of money. I think it was like $25,000. So I raised from a bunch of different people. And one of the things I take is when you go into a situation, I had all these ideas. I had a list of people, and I was like, these ones are no brainers. These ones are long shots. These ones I don't know. It turned out that like the no brainers ended up like saying no, or like not getting back to me a lot of the times. And like a couple of them did say yes, but like took a lot longer. And then the wild card one, like the first wild card one, I was like, I don't think this has any shot, but like, I'm going to throw it out there. And he ended up offering me almost immediately $50,000. And I was like, holy shit, like this is crazy. Yeah. And he was like, he asked me like 2 questions. I remember it was a phone call. I think I sent an email, or maybe I called him, I forget. But after he saw what the pitch was, we talked, and he said, hey, I want you to have skin in the game. How much money are you putting in? I was like, nothing. Like, I'm literally putting nothing. I don't have anything. I said, but my life is going to be on the line. And this is going to be something that like I have no escape route for. I have to make this work. Otherwise, I have a huge debt hanging over my head. And he goes, okay, good enough for me. Sorry, but I can only send you $50,000. And I was like, I was trying to like hold in, like that was the first one. He was like, I can wire it over. I think he said like tomorrow or something. And I was like, holy shit. And, he said, great guy, like, has been, a bit of a mentor in my life too. And yeah, and that was the first one. And then some of the, no-brainer ones that have like, I knew a few people with a lot of money, just one of them just never got back to me. He eventually did it towards the end, and it was like, I'm so sorry. And he's a great guy too. And he was like, I can give you some money. I was like, I'm actually good now. And some of the other ones where, I think the lesson on that is, one, you have no idea until you start doing it. And you're going to go in with all these preconceived notions, but you just have to problem solve. I think business and life is problem solving, and we try to stop ourselves from running into problems, and we get scared of problems. And really, the skill is, the problems are there. They will come, whoever you are, whatever you're doing. And if you can solve them, you will be in a good position. Most people just don't develop enough of that skill, I think, to put themselves through situations, like that, or anything stressful.
So the question I want us to look at today is, what idea are you over perfecting instead of simply going out and testing it? I have a buddy of mine, his name's Brian. I was on his podcast recently, and his whole brand is around just get started. Like, stop dithering, stop perfecting, and move, basically. Another one of my friends, Bobby, likes to say, move fast and make progress. And I realized this recently, kind of in my own life, is I hosted something called a content day for folks around Atlanta here, where I found a location and I found a video crew, and we set up a video setup for 8 hours, 9 to 5 p.m. And I put 30-minute blocks on the calendar the entire day. And my fellow agency owners and entrepreneurs could come and grab one of those blocks of time and record whatever content that they wanted to help get their marketing motions put into play, or whether maybe it's for a about us video or something on their website. Whatever they wanted, we'll record it. We have a place for them to sit down. We got their questions from them ahead of time, and we prompted them with those questions off camera. And it was one of the most favorite things I've ever done. I was not fully prepared for this when I sent out emails. In fact, I live in the suburbs of Atlanta. I live about an hour to the east of Atlanta. Most people don't come visit me in my hometown. I go and visit them in Atlanta. And I was like, I'm just going to toss this out to 25 people. Didn't even really reach out to most of the people that I know, just to kind of see, out of the 16 slots I have, send it out to 25 people, just see what happens. Thinking I would get maybe 5 to 8 people to sign up for a slot. And I kid you not, within 48 hours, 14 of the 16 slots were filled in my little suburban town that people would have to drive a decent amount to get to. And also, at the time when I sent them all these emails, I didn't actually have a location. I knew it was going to be in my county, but I had no idea where it was going to be. And I mentioned that in the email as well too. But when you just get started on something and try something and throw something out there, you're able to test very quickly if the problem that you're attempting to solve is a problem that people have. And I found out with a resounding yes, is that my agency owner friends and my founder friends want to record content, but they don't make the time for it. So I literally just gave them a space to do it, and they flocked in. And so I want to challenge you in your own business. Is there a simple version of whatever product or service that you offer that you could do for free or for a very small amount of money that will help people get their foot in your door at the very beginning, that solves a highly specific problem? And one of the reasons I knew about this problem was because I host this podcast and I talk to folks both, before and after the recording is done. And I hear folks talk about I wish I recorded more content. I wish I had these ideas for marketing, and I need to be posting on LinkedIn. I need to have content for emails and this, that, and the other. And so I basically just thought, what if I provided a space? And that was as simple as that idea was. And I gave myself 2 weeks to do it. I picked a date with the video crew once I found a video crew, and we just said, we're going to do it on this date all day. And as long as we get half the slots filled, we're going to go forward with it. So just move. That's what Alex got me thinking.